Good morning, everybody. Chubby Retro here. We're going to look at another magazine. Today it's going to be EGM issue 127 from February of the year 2000. So the Y2K has already passed. Obviously, things were okay. They were able to print this magazine. And so this is going to be featuring Crazy Taxi on the cover, along with Nintendo 64, PlayStation, PS2, Dreamcast, handhelds, and arcades. It's not too thick, but we are going to take a look. All right, guys, so today we are going to go back in time to February of the year 2000. We're going to take a look at the EGM issue 127 here. Like I mentioned before, the front cover is Crazy Taxi, Resident Evil Code Veronica, over 100 games inside, NHL 2K, Pokemon Stadium, Mario Party 2, Zelda Gaiden, Tomb Raider, Gran Turismo. So let's open this up and take a look. As you can see, we have, and it looks like it's getting unglued there, which is, surprising because it's not that old. But you have Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver on Sega Dreamcast. I don't want to open this too far because it's coming unglued, but now on Sega Dreamcast is what it's saying. Squaresoft, we have an ad here for Chocobo's Dungeon 2. Never played that game. I know that they were, part of the Final Fantasy universe. Never got into RPGs as much. A really cool ad here for Mario Party 2 on the Nintendo 64. When I was an N64 player, I did not really get into the Mario Party games, which was, it was a perfect system for that. You had the 4 controller ports. If you had enough siblings or cousins or whatever, you can easily get into it. But never had any of the Mario Party games until we got into GameCube and Wii and Wii U. That's when we got into the Mario Party games, and of course I love the new ones now. So an ad here for Psychic Force 2012, A Beating of the Minds, 363 degrees of mind-blowing fury. And then we have a 2-page ad here for Toomba 2. Just because you got the hair doesn't mean you got the power. And there's looks like a housewife, or I don't know. Yeah, it's like, or is that a man? I'm not too sure. But he has a hair and he's holding like a cat. And the fireman is trying to save him. So Toomba 2. Then we have an ad for the Dreamcast version of Sega Rally Championship, along with, you see here we have Crazy Taxi, Gear Up, which is no matter which new system you got over the holidays, will show you the absolute best gadgets to dig out your new gear. An article on Is Pinball Really Dead? And then Gran Turismo 2, the best racing game ever made. Dino Crisis. I like this game. I remember we bought it, and I bought it on a whim. It was just like, you know what? I've heard good things about it. Let me pick it up. And it was quite enjoyable. It was Resident Evil with dinosaurs. So very, very cool game. Daikatana, which was a shooter for the PlayStation and PC, and coming soon to Nintendo 64. So I'm sure it was from John Romero, the legendary co-creator of Wolfenstein, the Doom series, Heretic, Hex, and Quake, and now Daikatana, Are You Ready? Time traveling, shooting, using axes or what have you. Then we have Letter to the Editor. The letter of the month was discussing multiplayer games coming too soon. And then we have an ad for Die Hard Trilogy, Viva Las Vegas. I always have to ask this, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Some more questions. It's a 2-page ad for Die Hard showing the stunt doubles, which I'd assume would be the gamers, the different gamers that are playing the game. And so now the third one, which is the third page of this ad, Shows the game, has some screenshots, and of course the letters, the artwork of the month. Really, really nice stuff. I wish I can draw. Then we have Hardcore ECW Revolution. So it's a wrestling game in the vein of WWF Raw on Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. I didn't like the Acclaim wrestling games back in the day. Well, that's a lie. SmackDown, the first SmackDown for PlayStation. I really liked that game. So another second ad for ECW Revolution. A third ad. So they're hyping up this game. We've all been playing Murder Simulator. Stop teaching our kids to kill. Well, it's funny, I was having this conversation with my son earlier, or not earlier today, but a few days ago. I asked him, I go, do you think that video games cause... He was playing Doom on PlayStation 5, and you know, that's a gory game. And I asked him, I said, do you think that causes violence? Like, by you playing this, does that make you any more violent? You know, I know it's you're playing, you're seeing all the violence, so you're kind of just like desensitized to it. And he goes, no. He goes, I don't think it does. He goes, I know what violence is, and I know what real violence is, and what the repercussions are of that violence. He goes, just because I play a game about it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna become violent. And I know that was a discussion that, you know, back in the early 2000s, that was a discussion that people were having on whether video games, shooters, and what have you, cause kids to be violent. And so I don't agree with that, but there was a discussion. Dead or Alive 2 on Sega Dreamcast. 2-page ad. And then there was newest colors of the Dreamcast Rainbow. So these are all just articles. There's a Biohazard gun survivor game in Japan. And then we have Xena Warrior Princess on Nintendo 64. Some video game gossip. And then we have ESPN Baseball Tonight. The top 20 games, selling games of November 99. Let's just go over the top 5. Pokemon, 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 Pokemon. And then to round out the top 5, Donkey Kong 64. It's funny because it got good ratings back then, 8.5, 8.5, 8.5, and 8. But I feel like people liked it then, and now they bash on it. NBA Tonight for the Sega Dreamcast. Ridge Racer 64 for the N64. Some coming soon games, along with Alundra 2, which I believe is an RPG. A Sue and Chan 2000 little arcade that they started doing. And then a ad for Crazy Taxi, Sega Dreamcast. And you see the 4 wheels of the taxi up in the sky because it dove over this this hill here, and then you kind of see the words in the shape of the Transamerica building. EB Games, little ad here. That's one thing I noticed, is that they started putting a lot of like ads in the middle of the magazines. I don't blame them. I mean, oh, Dreamcast was only $199 at this point. Wow. I don't blame them. But yeah, I noticed that the earlier versions of the EGMs didn't have ads in the middle. So here's that. You can back up your memory cards onto your computer and save copies of it. And look at the connection. It's not USB. And let's see. So we have some previews. Who are you rooting for in SNK versus Capcom? Capcom won drastically, so I'm assuming they were in a lawsuit of some sort. At last, a medieval Tomb Raider. Uh-oh. What could this be? Could it be medieval? No, it's Crusaders of Might and Magic. Play it with a vengeance. So this was developed by 3DO, and it was a PlayStation game. And a preview of Resident Evil Code Veronica on Dreamcast. That game, when we played it, the graphical upgrade from the PlayStation era was pronounced. It was like, wow, this is what we have to look forward to. Some more on Code Veronica, along with a ad for Sega Dreamcast Zombie Revenge. Street Fighter 3 Double Impact, and Dreamcast Tokyo Extreme Racer. Game Boy Color Dragon Warrior Monsters, along with Dreamcast Choo Choo Rocket. And then Elemental Gimmick Gear and an ad for NBA 2K, which was the best basketball game, along with NFL 2K out at the time. And I hate that they stopped making them. Really good games. And then so we have Giga Wing, NHL 2K, the Neo Geo Pocket Color, along with some games, and different variations of the systems, different colors. Four Wheel Thunder, Tech Romancer, and an ad for some Mark Echo tennis shoes. Virtua Striker 2, Dragonus Cult of the Worm, Fighting Force 2 for the Dreamcast and PlayStation. Some more Dreamcast games coming out. ESPN NBA Tonight, Grand Theft Auto 2, Plasma Sword, and Swirl. That was probably the definitive edition of Grand Theft Auto 2 because it was on Dreamcast. And then an ad for Deception 3 Dark Delusion by Tecmo on the PlayStation. Aero Dancing Undercover, The Ring, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher it. Romance, The Three Kingdoms for PlayStation. This was a game that even now I've seen some videos on YouTube, and I wish I could remember who they were by, that I can kind of link it onto my video. But a guy did a video talking about the technology and what had to happen in order for them to transfer, kind of remaster the original PlayStation version of Resident Evil 2 onto a cartridge for N64, and for it to actually be the whole game and to be as good as it was. They did have to downgrade the resolution on some of the video sequences, the FMV sequences, or but besides that, it ran beautifully. It was the full game, and there was a lot of effort put into trying to get it to come out on Nintendo 64. And then we have an ad for Gran Turismo 2. Spyro the Dragon. I can't see. Ripto's Rage. Man, I'm getting old. I literally could not see that. And I was about to just not even say it. That's how old I'm getting. Ape Escape. These were fun games. And the ads were always fun. Requires the DualShock analog controller. Did they include it with it? Or did you just have to buy the game and a controller? Crash Team Racing. And then a preview of the N64 Mario Party 2, along with an ad for Rainbow Six for the Game Boy Color. Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64, as well as Harvest Moon 64. Legend of Zelda Gaiden, which ended up being Majora's Mask. And then Pokemon Stadium, All-Star Baseball 2001, and Fighter's Destiny. Eagle 1 Harrier Attack for the PlayStation here on the side here. And then, what is this? YouGoDirect.com. More games for less. The hardest pre-orders. Okay, so you can pre-order games here. What do I want? Frequent Buyer Program membership card. You got the descriptions. Now get the games. Fill in the handy checklist and use it as a guide when you shop online, call, or place your order. Okay. So this is a list you'd cut out. You'd mark down which games you wanted to pre-order. It had a price and how many points it would earn. And then you can go in there and log into the website and place your order and not forget anything that you wanted. Now we're talking about PS2. So the Tekken Tag Tournament Ridge Racer 5, Evergrace, ISS Soccer, Drum Mania, Sky Surfer, and K1 Grand Prix. I remember my brother got the PlayStation 2 and we bought the modem, the broadband modem. There was a game that I could not quit playing, and it was called SOCOM. That game was awesome. I could sit there and play that game for hours. It was so much fun, and it's like, it just brings back memories. The only other time I can remember playing online games as that much was Gears of War. Ace Combat 3 for PlayStation. And then now we're on WWF SmackDown, which is, I mentioned that earlier. That was an awesome game. And then Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation. Dragon Valor. Boonbots for PlayStation. It's 3D fighting action. Colony Wars, Red Sun, and then we also have Formula 199. Saga Frontier 2, and then we have, what is this? Time Out, Aladdin's Castles, and Cyberstation. Get Out of the House and Into the Arcade. I don't recall any of these being around my area back in the day, so maybe I'm missing something, but I don't recall any of those, so maybe this is something in other parts of the country. Do you guys remember any of these Time Out, Aladdin's Castle, or Cyberstation arcades? Siphon Filter 2, which was a fun game. Street Fighter, EX2 Plus, and then Railroad Tycoon. Street Skater 2, Colin McRae Rally, Marvel vs. Capcom, and Team Buddies, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Need for Speed, No Limits. And that were PlayStation games. These were fun games too. Army Men World War. I remember when they were released and people were talking about them, I was like, I mean, it's a little green plastic toys we used to play with as kids. How is that going to be an effective, game, a combat game? But it ended up being really, really good. And so we have Medieval 2, Romance of Three Kingdoms, and Kamurai, the 1900 number that I never called. NFL Blitz Tournament at those arcades we mentioned earlier. Does it say here where they're at? No. Love and Destroy, Jet D Go. Here's another ad. See, this was the game. It's like, how can that be a legit shooter or, combat game? And it was actually very, very fun. This is for the PlayStation N64. Castlevania for N64. Really awesome artwork here with Dracula. Pokemon Gold and Silver. So now we're into the Game Boy previews, or Game Boy Color. Pokemon Trading Card Game. Vigilante 8. It's amazing how they would make certain games. Like, you would think that Vigilante 8 would not transfer well to Game Boy Color, and why even make it? Who's going to buy it? But I mean, obviously people did. I don't see how this game would be playable or even similar to how it actually was on the other systems, but people used to buy them. Metal Gear Ghost Babel, Tomb Raider, Bionic Commando, and Crystalis. I mean, these games are good. For Game Boy Color, they looked good. GameFever.com, serious games for serious gamers. So it must be a store. Sonic Pocket Adventure, Card Fighters Clash, SNK vs. Capcom, Dukes of Hazzard Racing for Home. Did this come out when the movie came out with Jessica Simpson? Is that why this game was coming out? And then some arcade previews. Game Boy Color Deer Hunter, Virtua NBA. That NBA arcade. Gun Bullet Fever, Keyboard Mania, and Jumping Groove. So that must be like a dancing game. Battlezone ad, 2-page for the Nintendo 64. And then Blades of Steel 2000. Now this is Crazy Taxi. Now tell me that when you bought the Dreamcast and you bought Crazy Taxi and you popped this in, you weren't in awe of the graphical fidelity of the system and the speed. This game, I think, really showed off the system well, and it was a game that was already had a fan base because of the arcade, so it was just like a perfect port. It was awesome. And now I play it on my iPhone, and it's just as good. But I play with that controller that I have, because to play touchscreen is kind of unbearable. The music, the Bad Religion, and The Offspring. And then if we'd had gone for accuracy, we would have had to sacrifice gameplay, which wouldn't have been appropriate for a game like this. And Polaris Snowcross for Game Boy Color. Silhouette Mirage. The article continues about kind of like how to play the game and a day in the life of him as he's picking up people. And then an ad for Legacy of Kain, Fighting Force, Fear Effect, and Tomb Raider. Tee Off Golf on Dreamcast. MDK2, which I always thought was a very odd looking game, especially with a dog with 4 hands or arms and hands. And then this is the gear. You got your new stuff, you got to get your gear. So definitely with the Game Boy, you definitely needed some type of light or magnification, and some speaker upgrades would not hurt. Game Boy camera, it's not necessary. It took really bad pictures, but I mean, yeah, that would be a cool accessories. And then if you got your Dreamcast, you got to get some Dreamcast stuff. So you got to get your fishing controller, that's a must. And then you have to get your arcade stick, that's a must. And then you got to get memory cards. You can't forget the memory cards. Same thing with PS. It's funny how all these systems that come out, even the PS5, everybody comes out with a cooling device. I don't think they need cooling. I think they were built to kind of already have that taken into account. Here's the Rumble Rod, the fishing stick that my dad bought for himself because he bought a fishing game for the Nintendo 64 and he used to play that. And a steering wheel for the analog stick, and a leather glove. That must have been terrible to play with. I mean, I can understand a rubber one, but a leather one? Your hands are probably sweaty. And then just peripherals for all the systems. An ad for Marvel vs. Capcom. Clash of Superheroes on Dreamcast and PlayStation. Fear Effect ad, 2-page. Is pinball really dead? No, it is not. Because pinball will always be pinball. And I mean, we go to a really cool arcade in Pasadena. I'm going to do a video on it one day. And they have probably 5-6 pinball machines, and everybody's always playing pinball. And they have a lot of arcades. I mean, it's a really cool, it's called Neon Retro Arcade in Pasadena. They have a lot of really cool retro arcades, but the pinball machines and the Mandalorian pinball machine is really cool. Always being used. So pinball was not dead in 2000, and it's not dead now, in my humble opinion. Winback, which was like a Metal Gear Solid-ish type of game. It was fun. And then we have some reviews. So let's find the game of the month. F1 Grand Prix, Quarterback Club, South Park, Chef's Love Shack, Vigilante 8. What is going to be the game of the month this month? These are silver winners. These are silver. These are all silver. Shadow Man, Zombie Revenge. Which is the game of the month? Donkey Kong 64 just got silver. Did I miss it? Where is game of the month? Where is game of the month? Did I miss it? Did they trick me and put it on the first page? No. Where are you, game of the month? Game of the month, where are you? This has to be it. Platinum. Gran Turismo 2. All 10s. Game of the month. 10, 10, 10, 10. So essentially the perfect video game. Really, really cool. Really, really good, fun game. So that was the game of the month. We have Thrasher Skate and Destroy. We have Episode 1 Racer for the Game Boy. The review archive from the last couple issues. Some tricks of the trade. Some cool codes for NBA 2K. So if you want to screenshot that, you can enter your codes. Featuring Kobe Bryant, Ready to Rumble Boxing. So yeah, some really, really cool stuff there. Of course, an article on the decline of the arcades, this gaming rig that I always wanted to win, but I never even tried because I didn't want to cut anything out of my magazine. On sale now, some pricing, some ads. The typical next month is going to be Driver 2, an ad for Funko Land, which used to be, then got bought out by EB Games, which then got bought out by GameStop. The Sharkwire Online, so you can log online for your Nintendo 64. And Resident Evil 3 Nemesis on the back cover. So there you go, folks. Crazy Taxi EGM issue 127 from February 2000. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one.